What's important to you? My mission is to ask as many people as possible this question, because I believe once you know what's important, you can design and build a life of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. My name is James Dean. I'm a life coach, and I hope this podcast inspires you to uncover what's important to you. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at James Dean Coaching, or connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also learn how I can help you understand what's important at jamesdeancoaching.com. Today's guest is a mindset and NLP practitioner, a life and business coach, and has a higher certificate in counselling and psychotherapy. Living and learning through her life experiences and sharing expert knowledge and insights with others. She loves enabling others to live their best lives and is a strong advocate for the manifesting process. She loves to work with people in building their confidence and self-esteem. Today, we find out what's important to Niamh McDonnell. Hi Niamh, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here, Dean.
Absolutely.
James, nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really looking forward to chatting to you. So we're going to get straight into it. And so the first question always, Niamh, what's important to you?
I know I was thinking about that, right? It's such a loaded question, isn't it? Like because you could start by thinking, oh, like my family, my friends, my work, my career, my son, all these different things. But to really break it down, to like chunk it down, like to simplify it, I suppose what's really important, and I've noticed this from a very young age, is kindness. Like just the simple premise of giving kindness and what it does to you as well, what it does internally to even to yourselves, within yourself. As I said, yeah, from a really young age, I noticed that about me, just wanting to help others. And I think that's really, really important. I think there's so many benefits to reap from it, obviously for the other person and obviously for yourself as well. Just that simple, basic premise, as I said, of kindness and giving to others.
That's an interesting one. It's one that I haven't heard before, which is really interesting as a first sort of answers, because a lot of the things you said first, those maybe automatic things of family, friends, work and stuff, but that underlying, as you say, that thing of kindness. And what you said there, I found it quite interesting, is that it's something you kind of have always felt, even from a young child. So tell me a little bit more in a sense of, because it's one of those as well. It's a very sort of hashtag be kind, if you know what I mean. And it's like, in some ways, it's kind of got a, which is ironic in sense I've got a bad rep in some, because it's taken in the sort of, oh, you know, everyone's just trying to be kind, you know, so it can be seen too over, I don't know, over the top, or seen in a bad light in some ways, because it's not, the follow through isn't there. So I'm interested in, you said it's such a young age. So tell me a little bit more in a sense of what you mean by a sense of kindness.
Okay. I think even like to say to like, yeah, it's very true what you say, like hashtag be kind, it's everywhere. But I think kindness can come on, like there's so much can come under that umbrella, like not judging people. Something I noticed, especially going into my teenage years, now like I have my flaws and I'm no saint or anything, but I always had this thing where I hated talking about people. I hated being in conversations where people were talking about other people or judging them. Like my friends would say to me, I just go quiet. There's just something, and I think that's a kindness, you know, because you never know what's going on in someone else's life. You don't know the behaviors that maybe, or the conditioning, or the childhood, or maybe traumas, or, you know, how they saw the world from a very young age. So judgment, I think, is like, if we could just step back and be kinder and not judge other people. And sometimes it's like just about saying like, so what, just let them be whatever, how their you know, journey in this life, how they're dealing with things is their stuff, and it's about just dropping the judgments. It's really, really important one, I think.
Absolutely.
So simple, again, so simple.
Yeah, absolutely. from what you're saying there as well, would there another thing come under that? This is my word, and maybe it may suit or not. Is there a certain amount of empathy that comes into that as well then? In sense of being able to sort of see it from someone else's perspective, not just in sense of the one thing in sense of no judgment, but do you have that sort of developing that idea of having empathy for other people?
I did. I always remember that as a child as well. I don't. I would feel this if I saw someone that was like some injustice done to someone, or say someone had, let's assume like a disability, just, you know, something like that. It always like made me feel something towards them. It always made me feel compassionate, or like more, I don't know what, I can't explain it, but it was like just this, again, just the not judging of people and seeing them more than what they are, because we're not just these bodies, we are so much more. Like, I so firmly believe in a higher power, like the universe, higher source, God, whatever you want to call it. So, you know, we're so much more than that. And if we can see past the shell of the human body and see that there is so much more. So yeah, to answer your question, empathy, I do have a lot of empathy. It's stepping into, I suppose it's not going down the hole with the person and bringing yourself down there, but it's about being able to think, what's it like for them? How did they feel? You know, what's one thing I can do to maybe help this person? Because I think, going back to the kindness again, when you're in service to other people, when you're helping other people, it has such a massive domino effect back on you as well.
Yeah, tell me, because you said that a couple of times now, in a sense of not the, you know, being kind or spreading kindness or showing kindness to other people has a positive effect on the person who's giving that, and from yourself. So I'd love to know what your sort of thoughts are on that, when you say that you're not necessarily, there is a sort of self-fulfilling part of it as well. So what do you get from being kind then, I suppose, is the question.
That's a good question, yeah, because it can very easily go into ego, can't it?
Yeah.
It can very easily go like, oh, look at me now, I've got the praise. They're telling me I'm great. Oh, Niamh, you're brilliant. Thank you. You know, and it's like, oh, the ego is filling up. So it's a fine line between that as well. But it's more to do with the feelings, from my experience, the feelings in my body of when I'm just giving to another human being, especially someone that's in pain or is suffering in some way, that I can, like, I suppose I see that a lot with even my clients in coaching. And even when they send me messages, maybe, or say to me, you know, like a week later, like, I feel really good, or that really helped me. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm like going, oh, I feel good that they feel good. It's just simple. It's just, it's natural. I think it feels natural for me anyway.
Yeah. And how do you, because you said it there, there's sort of like the line of slipping it into the ego, in a sense of doing it for the sake of making yourself, it is a fine line of making yourself feel good, but for the sake of doing it, versus doing it for the person. So have you struggled to find that fine line, or is it something you just found natural to yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I would have struggled because I would have been a very avid people pleaser in the past.
Okay.
So I would have wanted the recognition, even though I always loved helping. I'm going to sound like I'm being hypocritical now in a sense, but I always loved helping, but I also loved, oh, Niamh, you're amazing. Thank you for that. Niamh, you're so kind. Niamh, you're so nice. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd be literally marinating in that like feeling, you know. So that's because being of such a people pleaser. But the whole people pleasing is another topic, because that brought me kind of down another road of feeling deflated and feeling at times unworthy, and feeling if I was rejected or neglected in some way, it would all be like, but why? I help, why, you know. There was a lot of questions there as well around that, and a lot of soul searching. Today I don't feel that need to people please. It's different. So in the past, yes, I would have been looking for, oh, like, tell me I'm amazing, tell me I'm great. Whereas today, it just comes more from that loving place, from that kindness, from just being like being very much authentic in myself. So I feel when you're authentic in yourself, it's very easy to be that with other people. And those barriers drop, those kind of, see me, look how great I am, you know. One of the biggest things, and I think this is really important, that I've also learned in the last couple of years is that dropping the expectations of other people, it's absolutely massive for me. So dropping the expectations like that. Now, if I help someone, I do something for them, it's okay if I don't get that back. Dropping the expectations of someone should do something or say something for me to be okay. Drop that. Dropping the expectations of, will this person ring me back? Will this person text me? Drop that. And it's just so much more ease within as a result of that. Like, I highly recommend anyone listening to just, you know, not chasing anything, not expecting, and instead coming from that place of love and kindness and authenticity. And what you notice is you attract instead. It just comes back to you, because what you give out comes back. Simple premise again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really powerful point you made there, and a sense of, when you're talking initially about the people pleasing, there's an element of that where I found us, if that's the way that we can sort of get our own sort of worth from others, in a sense of our sense of fulfillment. So you're just constantly looking for it, and it's not, because it's not coming from within and it's coming from an external source. You just have to keep chasing it. Whereas the point you said there, the last point, a sense of being able to be authentic, and not whether they come back to you or not, you're still full, because you're not reliant on them. It's like, if they do come back, it's a bonus. It's like, oh, that's great. But you're not looking for their validation, because you have it within yourself that you know what you did was a kind or a good thing.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah, it's just being more true and real and authentic in yourself. And do you know what another big word that comes as well is trusting in yourself. Like, trusting that, like, you'll handle whatever comes, trusting that, like, it'll be okay, trusting that it will work out, trusting that you have the tools and techniques, trusting that you're safe. And then it's like, because you have that trust within, you don't, if people let you down, which happens, because we're human beings, we let each other down, things happen, life happens, but it's like, I'll still be okay. I still got myself. I can still support me. I can still champion me. I can still be my, go-getter. I can be there for myself, and I'll figure it out. So it's very, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's very, like, it's a great catalyst in a sense, because when someone does, in a sense, let you down, if you've got expectations on them, because then you're like, okay, so what can I do for myself here? And there's, like, when do we get to do that for ourselves? Because we can be so reliant on the external forces. Yeah. So it's really trusting in yourself as well. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the words you said there a couple of times, where I think is a part of when you said going from a sort of the people pleaser to not sort of having to rely on the expectations of others, was being authentic. And it's a really interesting word, because again, a lot of people will say that's something to be authentic or to be themselves is something they find important. What does being authentic mean to you?
I think authentic to me would mean vulnerability.
Right.
Would be not trying to wear a mask. Okay. Not trying to be someone that I'm not. Plenty of time I would be the one that would be all like, I'm okay, I'm fine, smiley, happy, it's okay, like, just keep the sunny side up. But inside, internally, I'd be hurting, or I'd be anxious, or I'd be sad. And I thought, well, if people saw that about me, maybe they wouldn't want to be around me. Maybe they'll like, that's not like Niamh. So today, and I suppose that's where it comes across a lot in my videos and Instagram, is that vulnerability of, like, this happened to me today. This is, or how I deal with this. So it's it's vulnerability, and vulnerability, like Brené Brown, actually, I love her. She talks a lot about vulnerability, but she says how vulnerability is actually one of our greatest strengths. You know, so when you can, like, but I also am able to discern, I don't have to go and be vulnerable with everyone. I don't have to share everything with everyone. I don't have to explain everything to everyone. There's a piece in that as well, but it's about being able to be vulnerable when I feel it's right for me. And it's a safe space to do that as well. There's a lot of elements around that, dynamics, but it's when I feel safe and comfortable that I can be vulnerable. But I do think being authentic is a big part of that, is being vulnerable, being you, taking that mask right off.
As you say that, I think, and it's again, I would echo in a sense of the works of and importance of Brené Brown, in a sense of the work that she's done, the books that she's written, the talks that she's done, amazing stuff. And I would very much echo the inspiration in the sense of what she does, especially about vulnerability. But I think it's kind of like one of the things you said there kind of reminded me as well of one of the things that she said was like, it's only those real close-knit of people who almost, the way she put it, deserve to have that sort of, comes back to that trust thing you said as well. One is trusting in yourself, but kind of the part of vulnerability is to have trust in those other people that you want to be able to share those things with, that they're able to sit in that space with you, you know, and that when you're being vulnerable, that they can just, they're not trying to fix it, not trying to solve it. They're just able to just be there with you in that space.
Yeah, that's discernment as well, isn't it? Being able to discern who you like, not having to share everything, but knowing, okay, I'm safe with this person. But you feel it internally. You know, your cells, your body will tell you. You know it. It's instinct. It's gut. It's intuition. You know who you feel that with. Yeah.
You mentioned there, in a sense of what you're on Instagram and what you do with coaching. So I'm always interested in how people came about to working in the industry within coaching. So I'd love to know, in a sense of, how did you venture or find yourself into it?
Okay. So I studied counselling and psychotherapy back in my 30s, and about 10 years ago nearly. And I actually went on a trip to Haiti, right? And I worked like in an office job, and I went out to Haiti where we helped to build 100 houses within a week, right? Because they just had overcome the hurricane at the time, and not the hurricane, sorry, the earthquake. And also it's a very impoverished country anyway. So we went out there, and something massively changed in me. And I was like, I don't want to continue working in my job. Like, I just want to do something different. So I actually went and applied to counselling and psychotherapy course, and I didn't get in the first year. They told me I need to do some more personal development work on myself. So I was completely felt the rejection. And so I went away. In that year, I went back and started doing my own counselling, personal counselling. I started doing mindfulness, and I started doing a 6-month psychology course. Went back the year later and I got in. And then I did 2 years on that course. And then on the 3rd year, again, I didn't get in. Because they told me they only take a certain amount of people in and needed more personal development work or whatever. And again, felt the whole rejection, and was like, what am I going to do? Like, I want to do this, but I don't know. So I looked at different avenues or what else I could do. And coaching kind of came up a couple of times for me. So then I went and studied coaching for a year, and then it kind of it took off from there. I studied NLP, which is a neuro-linguistic programming. I did mindfulness courses. Like, I was always learning in some way, like throwing myself into any area of personal development that I could learn. I was just hungry for it. How the Instagram started was only about 2 years ago, and I had complete imposter syndrome. I wouldn't have had the confidence. I would have thought, like, what will people think of me? What my friends and who are watching think of me? They'd be like, what is she saying? So I was like real imposter syndrome. And then I got a coach to mentor me, a girl in New Zealand, actually. And I worked with her for 3 months, and she was like, what do you really want to do, Niamh? And I was like, I want to go on and do videos. I just want to share stuff. I just have this, I don't know if calling is the right word, that might sound too strong, but this really pull towards doing videos on Instagram. I just want to share my stuff. I feel like I have a lot to give. And then with her support and guidance, I just started doing the videos. And then it just got stronger and stronger, and just, you know, the following took off, and it just grew and grew all the time. And the girl that would have started 2 years ago to where I am today, like, and this is what I'd love people to know, is like, you know, when you really go after something, like really listen to that dharma, listen to that calling within, listen to that guidance. And I feel so much confident. Imposter syndrome is gone. Like, it's just, you know, when you repeatedly, I talk about that in my videos about the subconscious mind, when you repeatedly do something and consistently, you start to strengthen those neural pathways, and you start to, like, now it's my default is to like talk so confidently. And but if you'd seen me 3 years ago, you'd been like, nah. So yeah, it's been a great journey. I'm still on the journey, but it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think even thanks for sharing that sort of like that bit of the journey, because I think what's to kind of go back a bit as well, though, I think what's really important to sort of highlight there, in the sense of, you know, maybe obviously that trip you had to Haiti kind of maybe, I don't know if it maybe got you to reassess, in a sense, what you were doing in a sense of your space of your career. But then knowing you wanted to work in that space, the wider sort of, you know, therapy, well-being, sort of that sort of service type space for people, but having those kind of like knocks from unable to get into the course twice, and as you say there, that sort of having to manage that rejection, the fact that you were saying earlier, in a sense of like that was a challenge, I'm interested in the sense of like, how did you then, what was the things that kept you going even though you had those knocks? Because you ended up, in a sense of one, get into coaching, qualifying, then doing your Instagram, but you had these two big knocks that, you know, you couldn't continue. Can you remember, in a sense of what you did or how you thought to keep going and try again?
Yeah. Well, personally for me, there's something inside of me that if I really want something, I don't give up. Like, I'll keep on going, I'll keep on pushing. And I've always known that about myself. So that probably was one thing. And it was like, when I felt the rejection, and like from school, I would have felt very not clever and not good enough in school, and, you know, would have done an okay leaving cert, like did a course afterwards, but would always have felt like inadequate. So when I got the rejection, then it came back up again, that feelings, those old childhood feelings from school, like I'm not good enough, or they're better than you, and all this. And I suppose for me, a lot of it was, well, there's different elements, but like I found counselling very good to help me through that as well, to explore that, because in the counselling course, a lot of inner child work comes up anyway, because the first year is all around inner child work. So I was in that space anyway, so I was able to go, you know, like, why do I feel this way about myself? It was like a shame as well, you know, very shame, inadequate, you're not good enough. So that was one, but there was, again, that was a part of me, not all of me, but then there was this core, bigger part that was like, find another way, Niamh. What else is possible? What else can you do? Like, this doesn't have to be it. And that's the way I live my life a lot today. If there's rejections or knockbacks, I go, okay, so what else? Like, what else is possible? What's next? Okay, so, you know, and hindsight's a great thing, because when you look back, you can see, oh, that was meant to happen, even though at the time you mightn't feel or see that. So there was different dynamics like that. And just, I think it was just that I'm not, this thing within me that I'm just not going to give up. I'm going to keep on going. Yeah. And just because I loved it as well, actually, I loved the work, because I knew that helping people is something I wanted to do as well. So
yeah, well, I think again, to sort of echo some of the things you said earlier on, in the sense of some of the things that being so simple, and that is what you just said there, in a sense of when it be a knock or a rejection or something that doesn't go the way that you hoped, it's that question of being, well, what else can I do?
Mm.
What's the other options? What are the other, and it's kind of ties into some of the things you're saying as well, whether it be to do with vulnerability or, the getting past the ego, whatever. It's like being able to accept, well, what else can I do?
Mm.
And the willingness to even ask yourself that question.
Mm. And also, I think that that doesn't define me, doesn't define any of us. These things that happen in life, like they're knockbacks or setbacks or mistakes or failures, like they're all just feedback. If you look at it, it's all in how you look at things. If you look at them as feedback instead of a failure, like at the time I looked at it as a failure, I felt a failure. But then in time I was able to overcome that and see, okay, so what else can I do? This doesn't have to be the end of the road. There's so many options out there. But just to those feelings that come up when we do feel inadequate or we feel shameful or not good enough, like there's a part of us somewhere from as children that learned, developed those feelings, that we didn't come into the world feeling inadequate, shameful, not good enough, unworthy. So we learned that in some way. For me, I learned it in school, of this sense of I'm just not clever, I'm not good enough. I used to think that way in the past. So then, and I think a lot of the time is what happens throughout my life as well, is I saw things mirroring that back to me. I saw reflections of things kept coming up. I see, there you go, now you're not good enough. You are inadequate. But today that's gone. Like it's just gone. I don't feel that anymore because I look at things differently. My mindset's different. How I challenge things, how I look at things, how I feel towards myself. I don't know if you've done much around inner child work, James, but like I find it absolutely phenomenal in changing my life, is looking at that little girl who would have felt very shameful, and today, like, I just love her, I love her. So I bring her along with me, and I'm like, when things happen and shame comes up, or I feel fearful, or like, only what this happens, I know a lot of the time that's her talking, because she's sometimes locked back in those memories from my childhood of fear and shame and regret. And then I'm like, so the core part of me today as an adult is able to say, come on, like, you're not alone, I've got you, let's do this, and again, go back to that champion, supporting, loving, being kind to yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of like, because I'd love to, we'll go into it now, in a sense of the people that you work with, or the people that you, as you put out, you said it, I think, the people you attract. But it's that fundamental, in a sense of like, from obviously what you learned through your education there, recent education in this sort of counseling, therapy, coaching world. So much of it is about yourself before you can help the other person. And that phrase you just said there, in a sense of being able to love oneself, and it not be taken in a sense of an arrogance. There's so much, I think I've spoken to people about this before, a sense of a cultural thing. If someone says that they love themselves, it's taken in such the wrong way. But it's kind of like, for yourself and for anyone, if you don't really even like yourself, let alone love yourself, how are you going to do the things that you really want to do? And then it's effectively help the people you want to help. So it's a really powerful thing that you managed to get through to that point, to then be able to do it with the people that you work with.
Really, really good way of putting it. I think I was exhausted at times as well, of just not feeling good enough in myself. Like I was just tired of it, and I was like, and I think coaching is a little bit different to counselling in the sense that, like, I was able to ask more questions. I was able to, like, well, why, Niamh? Why does this happen to you? Why do you do this? And a lot of the time as well, I fell into, and I'm sure a lot of people do this, but fall into the victim, whereas I'm not taking responsibility. It would be blame. Well, if this person did this, if he was more like this, if she was, then I'd feel okay, which is complete madness, because we can't control how other people are going to react, or how they're going to feel, or what they're going to do. So that's why it's always an inside job. Like when things change inside of you, like things do change around you. That's what I really noticed. But it comes back to the basic premise again of just you just loving yourself and how you speak to yourself, and that you're not responsible for how other people treat you or their opinions of you. You're only responsible for yourself, and that you do have power. You do control that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always in, because obviously part of the theme of what we've been chatting about is you helping people, and now that you're in the position to do that with what you're doing in your coaching, I'm really interested in the sense of the people that you work with, and those people, not specifics people, but in the sense of, you know, because as soon as I said that, you just started smiling. So I'm just going to be quiet, and just you can just tell me about the people that you work with.
Oh yeah. God, it's funny. I do believe that like we attract in, like there's a lovely saying that I love actually, and it's like we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. And I've seen that a lot in the last 2 years since I set up this coaching business, of the people that I attracted in really mirror a lot of my values, mirror a lot of who I am, mirror a lot of and it's funny, sometimes I might have clients that would come on and would talk about a breakup, and I would have gone through a breakup, and I'd be like, oh my God, they can actually, you know, but I suppose in the coaching, as you'd know, that's where you've got to be able to step back and, you know, hold that space, even though you might be triggered, you know, you might be activated because we're human beings, but it's being able to still hold that space. There's a lot of strength in that, I found as well, being able to, I'm being triggered, but I can still listen to the person. But the type of people are like, oh, is men, women, all different ages, mainly adults more so. Like I don't work with children or teenagers. It's adults, and it's a lot of the time it's just people that are struggling with facing like their thoughts, their anxious thoughts, you know, getting caught up and getting stuck, and knowing that like they just want to move past that. And I just notice a lot of trend with that, with people just feeling anxious, and because the mind is so powerful, isn't it? Like it just so powerful how it controls so much.
Yeah. And within a sense then, because it's obviously the people you work with, and then obviously the work that you do on your social media, particularly on Instagram, are there any sort of, you said the sense of feeling anxious in those 2 years that you've been sort of really working on your business? Have you seen, is that, would you say, the biggest trends, or is there other things that you think that sort of the commonalities of people that you've worked with, that and the messages that you've given out that have really helped people?
So the commonality of people probably does come back a lot to how they are in their lives, how just struggling or just feeling lost, or I think a lot of people as well resonate with my videos around the inner child. That seems to come up a lot with clients. I do notice that when I do videos on the inner child, and I suppose people, when I talk about how like I now look at myself in a different way, or I don't criticize or reject or be meaner to myself, I'm so much more kinder, and I suppose that comes across in the way I talk. So that's probably the messages. Because the subconscious mind is another one. I love talking about the subconscious mind, because it's a field of opportunity and creativity, like where you can just create things. And I've noticed like visualizations is a big thing that I do as well in the videos. And I know a lot of clients will come and say, I like the visualizations. How does that work? You know, journaling is another thing. I do a lot of journaling with clients. I get them to do exercises, writing, but visualizations, like even you can see the difference after they come out of the visualization. There's just a sense of calm. Like sometimes you can see them coming in, and there might be a sense of frantic or frazzled, or, you know, and this happened to me. And then sometimes like, let's just let the story go for a moment. Let's just drop, you know, because you can go through the whole day talking about what happened, but like, let's just come back to the present moment, and then do a meditation. It could be a visualization or a meditation, and you just see the difference in them afterwards. Much calmer, like just even their face, their facial expressions. It's just, so they're probably the big ones. I think is the inner child work, subconscious mind, visualizations, and dealing with anxious thoughts, just how to overcome those anxious thoughts, wanting to, some people have come for like maybe bitter, or maybe they want to change careers, they're looking for direction, they just want to explore that. you know, some people come like difficulties in their marriages, and just, so there can be an array of things, but it nearly always comes back to how the person thinks and feels about themselves. If you can change that, you know, if they can start to work on themselves, get out that victim, take responsibility, you know, and start to take direction in their lives.
Absolutely. And that's what I find in some ways so interesting, in the sense of what we could be considered the sort of, and not to minimize when I say this, like the surface challenge or perceived problem that person may be facing, whether it be, as you say, relationship, career, feelings of, you know, stuckness, unworthy. In some ways, it can all come back to distilled in the sense of how that person perceives themselves, feels about themselves, and essentially where they want to then go. And it's you saying there, it's like, but in the end, it's, when it comes to sort of the coaching side of it, it's on the person themselves to make those changes, like you did yourself. And I think that's kind of where it's obviously coming across, is the fact that you're not telling people, and it comes back to that point of your kindness and then sense of the empathy, is like, you know what these people are going through and experiencing. You've done it, so you feel that so you know you can help them to help themselves, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. That's a really good point. Like at the start, when I first started getting clients, I was like, I had imposter syndrome, as I said, because I was thinking, who am I? Like, you know, they're going to see through me. They're going to think, what does she know? You know? And I suppose, I'm sure everybody that steps into something new in any field feels that little bit of trepidation or anticipation about it. So, but as I went into the sessions, as the weeks went on and the months went on, like, I was like, Niamh, you're doing something here. Like you're making a difference. But you made a very good point there, James, as well. It's up to the person. Like they've really got to be committed and open and want to, like, you can work with people and they might come for one session, then just drop off. And you know, maybe it's not their time, they're not ready, and that's fine. But it's those people that are really committed and are disciplined that want to make the changes. And then it just naturally comes, then it just flows, and then you see them, you know, because coaching is a lot about putting it back on them, like they're creative, resourceful and whole. So give them the tools, put it back on them, because people love to figure things out for themselves. They don't want to be told what to do. If I sat there for the hour and said, do this, do that, that's not going to help them. They need to. And I think there's a sense of autonomy as well when you go, oh, I figured out myself, I know what to do now. So it's just guiding them. They know the answers within. I always remember that, learning that in the coaching. They've got the answers. They live in their bodies. You don't know, but you can direct them and guide them and challenge and question them to find those answers.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love it. What the other side of it, I suppose, is the fact now that I'd like to ask to get your perspective, is the fact that you obviously went into coaching as the thing you want to help people and provide, you know, give them that support, guidance, whatever it is to do what they want to do. But it also is an element of, similar to myself, of setting up your own business and going into that on your own. So tell me about that, you know, the two sides of it. One is the people, the other side of it is obviously is the business side of it. So I'd love to know your sort of thoughts or perspective on that part of it.
Yeah, so the business side of it, as I said, it kind of just started off very slowly. At the start, I was just taking clients like in my office, just turning on my laptop. You see, it happened during COVID as well. So it was, and everyone was going online. So everything was, so I didn't have to charge rent to bring people into a room, try and get clients, which is what I was trying to do before COVID. And that wasn't really working. And then when COVID happened, and then the simplicity of, I only joined Instagram, I think in 2020 or something. I wasn't on it before that. And then I just started like, progressing and doing the videos, and then clients started coming to me, like just messaging me. So then it just, I've lost my train of thought there now. So your question was, sorry.
Just a sense of your going into business, you know, how did you find essentially going into it?
Yeah, going into it. So I found it challenging because I'm on my own as well. So I don't, it was just sometimes like a deer in headlights, because I'd be trying to figure things out. And like, I also work another job, which is, I reduced down my hours in that to facilitate the coaching, because it got really busy in the last year or two. So, it was like at the start, as I said, yeah, I was just kind of figuring it out. Today, I feel a lot more confident in the business. I feel a lot more, I feel there's a lot more potential at the moment. I think it hasn't fully, I think there's so much more that it can do, that I can do. And that's kind of probably where I'm at. It's come really far and it's come really well to a point now where I'm like going, again, like what's next? Where am I going to take this business? Workshops is something that I massively want to do. I think you might know Jerry Duffy.
Yep.
So I was due to do a training speaker school with him a few weeks ago, but I couldn't make it. So I'm going again in May. But I with him, actually, I did online with him in 2021. So public speaking is something that I really want to take my business off to as well, because I think the more energy in a room, like the more people, you know, like one-on-one is good, but I just so many ideas of where I want to take my business. But it's at that stage where it's just kind of on the cusp of something. It's
That's
growing
really
all the
cool.
time.
Yeah, that's really cool. Love to hear. You shared one earlier, but I'm going to ask the question again. I love quotes and phrases in the sense of how they can be very powerful and applied. So I'd love to know, are there any other sort of quotes or phrases that you find important?
I have loads. I thought about that. All right. One of my favorite ones, I don't know if you've heard of Wayne Dyer.
Yep.
And he's one of my favorite. I think he was the first person that really got me into, I used to read his books, listen to his YouTube videos, that really got me into motivation and personal development. I just love his work. But he's a great quote, and it's like, it's so simple. Again, it's change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. So that's what I do when I'm triggered, when I'm something setback, something's hard comes up. I like go, okay, Niamh, this is what's in front of you, because we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. It's another quote again.
Yeah.
But we see things as we are. So we're seeing things from our lens of the world, or from our conditioning, our past behaviors, our childhood, experiences. So we're not seeing things as they actually are in front of us. So when we can change that, when we can get like still, and ask the questions, okay, like how can I nourish myself right now in this moment? How can I support myself? Is what I'm thinking actually true? It's a really, really important one, because if we don't challenge our thoughts, we're going to especially those crazy thoughts, if we don't challenge them, we're going to believe them. So what about asking, like, is what I'm thinking actually true? Byron Katie has the 4 questions, and I love them. And it's like, can I absolutely 100% know that what I'm thinking is true? So you want to find that space. So Viktor Frankl has this great quote as well. He was the guy in the Austrian psychiatrist in World War that was thrown into the camps in horrific circumstances. But he says, like, there is a space between the stimulus and the response. So if you can find that space, so if we're very reactive, then we don't find that space. We don't find that, like, okay, how can I look at this? How can I change this? What can I do about this? If we're more proactive and go, okay, so let's just look at this for a moment. How can I change the way I'm thinking about this? What else? So many questions we can ask. I could be here all day asking those questions. The other quote that I just love as well is, I don't know who this is by actually, but it's one of the first videos I did on my Instagram. And it's like, it's not what someone is thinking about us that causes us to wobble. It's what we are thinking about what they are thinking that causes us to wobble. So basically, we never know what someone's really thinking anyway, but our mind goes into, so we make up the stories in our head. And like, I know Pat Divilly talks a lot about this as well, who I follow, and it's all stories and the BS that we make up in our heads. If you don't challenge them, you're going to believe them. So it's like, and sometimes those stories aren't even ours. They could be our parents, could be their parents before them. It's generational, stuff. They're probably my 2 favorite quotes. I'm so much more busting, but they're my 2 favorites.
No, absolutely. And I know, thanks. And I think, again, what I love about those ones, again, is like it's the application of them, in a sense of, like, you can really sort of, if you really kind of listen or read those quotes and take it in, it's like they have some real application to changing how you think and how you feel and what you do and what you say. And that's why I love about those ones. And the second one is it's so important in a sense to really highlight that whole concept. And I hadn't heard of that one before, and I'm gonna find it now because it's a really
I'll
really
send it on
interesting
to
one.
you.
Yeah, send it on, exactly.
I'll send it on,
Because we can find ourselves, you say, trying to create the story that doesn't exist, and especially when we're projecting it onto that another person who hasn't an absolute notion about, and they could be doing the exact same thing back and think we're thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, they're thinking this, and putting something on them. And then if you do that enough times, when you're convincing yourself that you know what the other person's thinking, you can then, it'll change your own emotions. Because if you are thinking that they're thinking a negative, then you'll feel bad. Like, so it's reinforcing, like if we talked about earlier, the sort of like the imposter syndrome or not feeling worthy. If you then project, what you're essentially is projecting your own thoughts and feelings into someone else and saying, oh, they must be thinking I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that, especially if it's a negative, and can go into that sort of spiral. So it's a really important one, I think, the one you shared there, because it's like, we don't need to fill in that story. We don't need to fill in that blank. And it kind of reflects the point you said earlier about letting go of the expectation.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah. And you know, just to follow on from that as well, James, is like around like, you know, when people are deflecting or they're projecting stuff onto you, right? And we can very easily like take it personally, you know, we can think like, oh, it's me or this. It's not what they're saying that's hurting us. It's that they're triggering a wound already within ourselves.
Yeah.
So you could come and say one thing to me and someone else could say the same thing, and it may not, or you could say to someone else, it might impact on them, but it might impact on me because I might be carrying that wound, and I might think, oh, does he think that about me now? Does he think, does he know that I'm not clever? Does he know that I'm not good enough? Does he know this? And so it always, that's again where it's always an inside job. It comes back to yourself. So you've got to explore and ask the questions. What's being triggered in me right now? Like, okay, so that person, I don't know what they're thinking. Let's put them aside for a moment, come back to myself and be like, what's activated? What wound right now is feeling this? And what if I can send that some compassion and some love, like I would to a little child that's maybe feeling sad or hurt or lonely? Think of that part like a little child. What would I do? I'd bring it into my arms. I'd say, it's okay, don't worry, I've got you. It's going to be all right. Similar to that, just sending compassion to that part, that wound that feels that hurt, or, you know, and when we can touch into that wound, sometimes we want to avoid it, we want to numb it out or, you know, escape it. But when you, and that comes back again to that vulnerability and authenticity, just being with it and being, okay, I feel this hurt, and knowing that it's not about what the other person has said. It's about how you're internalizing, how you're conceptualizing it, and what you can do to help and change that for yourself.
Absolutely. One of the other things I'd like to know about any of the guests that I chat to is maybe some of the influences that have been in your life, whether they will be people have influenced you, whether it be private or in the public eye.
Okay, so many as well now, actually. Well, Pat Dibley came up there now as well, so I would mention him. I just find his talks really, I've been to a couple of his talks, I find him powerful. Who else now? Wayne Dyer, as I said already. Byron Katie. There's another book that I absolutely love. It's called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. I found that phenomenal as well. And again, I just immerse in listening. Like, I think that's the journey in personal development as well, is constantly upskilling, constantly reading these stuff, constantly learning and looking at this. And because again, it strengthens those neural pathways. You keep on learning, because what's the alternative? Feeling crap and thinking, you know, I'm not good enough. And there are so many. I love Freddie Mercury.
Well,
He's massively inspired me. That was a bit left field now.
Well, you found a kindred spirit there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
love him.
Yeah, well, I was in my late teens a member of the official fan club for so.
Where yeah? Oh my God. I went to see him last year in London, actually. In myself and one of my friends went. I got tickets pre-COVID, but they couldn't play because of COVID. So we went to see them in I think the O2, but with Adam Lambert. They're amazing. Have you seen them?
I seen them when they played Marley Park a few years
Oh,
ago here in
mm,
Dublin. Yeah,
yeah,
incredible. Like, yeah, no, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. No, I was,
Freddie yeah, sorry.
yeah. No, go on.
No, I was going to say, sorry, Freddie massively
Yeah,
inspires me.
yeah,
His story, I read all his books, his life, what he overcame, again, his childhood. Yeah, he's massive influence in my life as well, which is a
yeah.
bit different because he's not as motivational field, but in a different way. I just,
Yeah. No, but
yeah.
that's what I love about in a sense of like the question in sense of influence. I think there's like it's not necessarily there isn't a right or a wrong influence if it's and it's this thing of like one of the things that I was kind of like over the last year or so was this concept of um inspiration, not imitation. So,
That's really good.
I'm not trying to when I'm like because I would be self, I would like read different books or try and challenge myself for different types of people, and that thing of like I'm not trying to copy them. I'm not trying to be a different version of them, but what have they done that I can then take and go to be a bit more of me? So in a sense of like for me, because I was very obsessed in a sense with Queen when I was through my teen years, and
Yeah.
I still have pretty much every album on LP as well. Like I still have them
Oh,
on
really?
record. Yeah,
Yeah.
have the lot. Maybe drifted, maybe as I got older, but there's still just part there. But I
Mm.
think for me, when I look back, say something like Queen and Freddie Mercury is just that absolute. He's the epitome of someone who's being themselves.
Ah,
He had to go through a journey to get there as everyone does, but he was fundamentally, for all the good and the flaws, himself,
yeah,
and that's
that's
what
it.
I still take from him.
Yeah, yeah, he was. And even all I mean, they got awful abuse from the media, and
Yeah,
like record companies, and because of the way he dressed and everything. And he was like, F them all, like, I'm doing it anyway.
yeah,
That's very true, actually. He is inspiring, yeah, because there's authenticity, isn't it? And vulnerability, like,
completely.
and strength. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's amazing.
Amazing. Oh, I can't believe we managed to get Queen and Freddie Mercury into a podcast. I'm so happy. It's awesome.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. I have one more question for you,
Mhm.
Niamh, which is what's important for your future?
Oh, okay. What's important for my future? What's important for my future? Okay, let me think. So, one of the most important things for me is, I'm going to bring it back to myself now,
Mm,
because I think listeners will get this as well if they can take this away, is to continue to keep on learning and growing. And I no longer want to go back to those patterns of feeling shame or inadequate. Now they will come up at times, that's okay. But not to the extent of what they used to, or not for the longevity either. Today, in my future, I just want to keep on growing and loving myself and being myself in the world and sharing that, and just again, I'll come back to that big one, is the dropping of the expectations. I
mm,
find so much freedom in my life. Now, I could sit here and talk about how I want my business to go and I want relationships to go and I want this to go, but I know they'll come anyway when I first start to love myself more and more. When I
mm,
give that respect and value and worthiness and kindness to me, those things will all come in. So I don't
mm,
need to ask for them. They just
yeah.
automatically gravitate towards me.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. Niamh, it's been wonderful to chat to you today.
You
I
too.
really appreciate you taking the time to come on. I want to make sure that everyone is supporting you and is able to follow and connect with you. So we will make sure everything is in the notes in sense of links to
Yeah.
where they can find you online. But if you want to give a
Yeah.
shout out now of where people can find you online, please go ahead.
Okay, so the main platform is Instagram, a little bit on Facebook, but not really. Everything, all my videos, all my content is on Instagram. So in that you can email me or you can direct message me. I am looking at putting in more links where people can contact me and ask more questions. That is in the process. But at the moment, yeah, message or email me and I'll come back ASAP. And
Brilliant. So yeah, so that link for Niamh's Instagram handle will be in the show notes. So make sure you go and click on that and follow Niamh and find all her videos and content there. Once again, Niamh, thank you so much for chatting to me today.
Oh, thank you so much too, James. I really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and share. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Again, you can follow me at James Dean Coaching on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with me on LinkedIn or find out more about me on jamesdeancoaching.com.